Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are moving on with Season 7, Episode 19, which is Hollywood AD, an episode that was written and directed by David Duchovny. This is one of those kind of meta films or episodes, self-aware, tongue-in-cheek, full of satire and zombies. It's a bit weird. Brian, tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say is that whenever David Duchovny is writing and directing, you're never going to get boring. You're always going to get something that's at least interesting. And I do feel like he always tries to tackle something, like really kind of dig a bit deeper than perhaps other people might go. And I feel like he's quite underrated, really, as an artist in that regard, as someone with ideas that he can bring to the table. And he'll always be remembered as Fox Mulder and as an actor. But I don't know. I'd love to see what he could do with a budget, because I know he's made at least one film, maybe a couple of films like he's directed. They didn't do that well, but they were very, very low budget, notable only for the fact that he managed to kind of get some fairly big names in. But on the strength of this, I'm guessing this episode had a way bigger budget than the film that he made. So, I'd love to see what he could do if somebody gave him the money to do it, because he ain't short of ideas. I'll say that much. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. It's a bit weird.
Yes, it is a bit weird. Yeah.
It goes places, and there's some stuff in there that we'll get to that, I can't tell it. Is that intentional, or is it not, or is it a happy accident, or But yeah, the question is, do the X-Files audience are they enamored with Duchovny's kind of sweeping strokes, or are they not? No, I don't know. Go on. I don't know where your memory's sitting with what we've graded so far, but 22 episodes from season 7. Where do you think this sits on the IMDb ranking?
6. I have no idea.
6. It's 16.
16.
Yes, 16.
Okay.
I'll say I'm surprised by that, actually. Not to give anything away, but I do find that surprising. I mean, there are issues that I have with it that I'll get into, but I don't foresee many other people having those kind of issues. Certainly not to the degree that it would bring the episode down. So, I was surprised to see it at 16. What about overall in the 217 episodes?
Wow. 152.
Very, very close. 156.
Wow.
156. Bottom quarter, which I'm actually quite shocked by. I'll be perfectly honest.
But yeah, I can understand that. It's because it's Duchovny. He's the main guy. You think they would even give him a little bit of, even if you don't like it, a sympathy push. A sympathy star. Yeah. Let's give it a little push up. But it's tonally a very tongue-in-cheek, and it is satirizing, and it is poking fun at the X-Files as well, so you can see people almost pushing against it.
Yeah. I don't feel like it's mean-spirited, though. That's the thing.
No. I think it's satirizing it in the way that it could have went, where the show could have gone. But no, it's not. It's not there.
Like a few episodes ago, we had Gillian Anderson doing her episode. And I had big problems with that, because I felt like she was doing things with the character that shouldn't have been done with that particular character. I think if she wants to explore those things, explore them elsewhere. Whereas I don't feel like there's anything here that Duchovny explores that isn't at least in keeping with the characters. So yeah, but let's get into it, because I'm
absolutely
quite intrigued to see where you're going to land. We open up on what is very clearly some kind of mock version of the X-Files. We've got Gary Shandling as Agent Mulder, Taya Leone, who at the time was Dave Duchovny's wife, playing Dana Scully. And yeah, they're doing their thing, going up against zombies, going up against was that wasn't not F. Murray Abraham, it was someone.
No, it wasn't him. I can't remember.
It's an actor that I've seen many times. I always get him confused with F. Murray Abraham. He's got a slight look about him. But yeah, seen him before. Anyway, he's playing this weird kind of almost Pharaoh-like supervillain you'd expect to find in a comic book or something.
Yeah.
And there's zombies all over the place who are also sniper zombies. It turns into a bit of an action fest. And then Mulder and Scully end up in a coffin and start kissing and making innuendo jokes about the size of one's flashlight and things like that. And then we go from there to like a cinema full of people, including Minnie Driver.
I didn't notice.
Did you not spot that? Minnie Driver sat there, so the camera is panning along, and Minnie Driver is just there. And like, she was not a small-time actress at this point. You know, she'd done Grosse Pointe Blank and things like that. Now, she was in a film with David Duchovny called Return to Me. So I'm guessing this was like a major favour to either one of the two. Maybe she was a huge X-Files fan, and because they were friends, just work me in. I don't care, even if you just stick me in. Or maybe it was just like Duchovny saying, hey, let's put you in there and see if anyone notices. It's like kind of like a Where's Wally type thing. But yeah, that was definitely Minnie Driver sat there in the audience at the cinema as the camera pans across. And everyone's lapping it up, including Skinner, who's in the audience. He's loving it. While the real Mulder and Scully look on in absolute horror. And we go to the opening credits.
It's a fun opening. Like, it is like the worst idea of what the X-Files could possibly be. Like, and just to see everybody like so engrossed with that, and you're waiting on the camera to hit Mulder and Scully. You're just waiting for it to pan along and see the utter disdain on their faces. So I thought it was like a really kind of fun opening.
Yeah. And of all the people as well to pick for Mulder, Gary Shandling.
Yeah. It's just... and the way it's just like, it's not just zombies, it's zombie snipers. It's, it's completely ludicrous.
Oh, man, it's great. I love it. But it does leave you, by the end of it, thinking, what the hell is this episode going to be about?
Yes.
How did we arrive at this point? Yeah, great. I love it. So we get past the opening credits, and obviously we go back in time because we are going to see how they got there. And we open with Skinner filling in Mulder and Scully on a bombing at a church while a man sits behind them making voice notes. This man happens to be writer and producer, allowed to observe for research. And this guy keeps interjecting on his voice recorder. And then at the end of it all, Mulder turns to Skinner and he's like, "Sir, have I pissed you off more than usual?"
Yeah. It's funny, but let's not quickly move by the Skin Man reference.
Skin Man, yes.
Which is just phenomenal.
Which I feel like we've had before.
Don't know.
I feel like somebody has called it. I feel like Frohickey has called him. No, he's called him G-Man, hasn't he? He's called him G-Man. So maybe it's just because I've seen this episode before and I knew that at some point he does get called Skin Man. But yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, it sounds like some kind of porn reference. It's not it's not the best.
I never got that myself right.
Skin Man. It does not sound like the best chosen. Yeah. Moving on. There was a one thing as well that the guy doing the voice recording said it was funny when he was basically telling himself who he sees Mulder as being, and he's he calls him Jehovah's Witness meets Harrison Ford's Witness,
which is quite funny.
Oh man, classic. But it's little things like that as well that like Duchovny's really good at with the dialogue, like finding just references, pop cultural references. They're also quite more of a thinking man's kind of reference rather than he doesn't go to your obvious kind of places like Tarantino or someone like that. You know, he's pulling out references to Witness from the 80s. It's great. So Mulder takes Dwayne, as he is called, with him to speak to Cardinal O'Fallon. What did the bombers target, they ask, and Cardinal O'Fallon takes them to what he calls God's refrigerator, which is a crypt underneath the church. When they get down there to inspect the damage that was done by the bomb, they find a phone ringing, which leads to an amusing little ditty where Dwayne pulls out his phone, then Mulder pulls out his phone, and then the Cardinal, who you don't expect to have a phone, whips his phone out.
Yep.
And turns out it's none of them. It's another phone underneath the rubble that belongs to one Micah Hoffman, which is apparently a hero of Mulder's, which I'm assuming they've made up for the show. Isn't actually a man that exists. I didn't bother researching it to find out, but yeah. I didn't quite get why Micah Hoffman, why his phone would be going off with his name showing up on it.
Yes, so I this whole episode had me wondering if it's one of those untrustworthy narrator stories.
Right.
Where, because there's things that happen in here where you're just like, I don't know if this is real or not. Like the whole bones dancing and stuff like that the producer sees. Yeah. And I'm just making me think, like, is this the Hollywoodized version of this story from the producer's point of view? And I'm just like, is this, like, it makes no sense, but it moves the story along. Like meta within meta.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of like, I'm not quite sure how this ties together with that. And when we get to the bowl, they're just talking about this bowl, but I don't recall ever seeing them really find it or say, hey, look, I found this bowl. Is this what they're looking? No, they just start randomly talking about a bowl at one point as if we should know what it is.
Yeah, but that's what happens in like some movies and stuff like that. Things they're just there, and it moves the plot along, and you're like, if you stop and think, how did that happen? And I think it's a satire on things like that, because it happens throughout the episode where stuff just by contrivance or out the blue, or it just literally falls in their lap. They get a clue or something that explains part of the story. Yeah.
It's just bizarre that the guy's phone would be ringing and it's got his name on the phone.
Oh, it's completely bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't make the connection that, someone called Micah Hoffman is ringing this guy. No, they say that Micah Hoffman's phone is tagged with his own name so that when it rings, it has his own. Yeah. It kind of stunts my mental growth for a second during the episode. So Mulder and Dwayne are now joined by Scully. Mulder fills them in on Micah Hoffman, who is an activist from the 70s that Mulder really admires, one of his 3 heroes, apparently. Mulder asks Scully where she'd been this morning, and she looks shifty, as does Dwayne. while she tells him, just doing some paperwork. Which, again, does that ever get revisited?
Yes. But you need to think of it as in like a whole roundabout way. Like, it's probably something she can't tell in front of the producer while she's doing there. But then the producer uses it to say that there's a love affair between these two in the end of the movie within the episode.
Okay.
I feel like this episode is really layers of meta on top of one another.
Yeah.
And I think it's all from the producer's point of view.
Right. It's there's definitely some weird stuff going on that you have to be paying very close attention to. But they break into Hoffman's art studio. Scully suggests Hoffman died from his own bomb. His studio has materials for making forgeries of various artifacts, ancient artifacts. Dwayne asks the question that seemingly the two FBI agents don't seem to be able to ask themselves, which is, what would O'Fallon be doing with Hoffman's forgeries? To which I have to ask the question, did we see O'Fallon with his forgeries?
Nope, never.
It's just like, what was he do? Like, did he make a reference to the fact that there's a receipt there from O'Fallon? I don't know, but yeah, it all seems to move so fast that you don't ever have time to question the information and the logic leaps that the people make within the episode. So you just have to kind of go along with it. Mulder and Dwayne are both at God's refrigerator. They find a real fake copy of the Gospel of Mary. So I do love the exchange between the two, and it's like he's talking about it's a fake copy of the Gospel of Mary. Oh, but is this the real one? It's like, yeah, but you understand, even the real one would be a fake one because it doesn't actually exist. So Dwayne answers a phone call, then sees skeleton parts dancing. And it looks rather Tim Burton-esque, I've got to say. It reminds me of something you would see in the original Beetlejuice film. So
it's but again, it leads into the whole fantastical, because it's just, look, why is it there? What's the point? I think it's from the point of view of the storyteller, because it just makes things a little bit more interesting and fun.
Yeah. Okay. So we go to a diner where Scully tries to rationalize what Dwayne saw. Dwayne has his own rationalizations. Says it's like, I love how he jumps to like CGI, and it's like, dude, you were in the room. Like, that's not the way CGI works. But that's one of his rationalizations anyway. And he says he's leaving, but he calls them both crazy for contradictory reasons. That being that Mulder's crazy for believing what he believes, and Scully's crazy for not believing what Mulder believes. It's like, dude, like, makes sense. Make that make sense. But it's funny. It is funny. It's just this idea that, like, it's almost an admittance that he chooses not to believe in the things that he saw and the things that Mulder believes, but there is actual logical value in believing them. Like, if you follow the logic, no matter how ridiculous it seems, it makes things like faith, for example, which brings us into essentially the theme of the entire episode, or certainly one of the themes, one of the strongest themes of the entire episode, which is that one man's faith is another man's insanity, is another man's mental illness. Is this idea that no matter what you believe in, there's a certain element of faith to it. Because there will always be someone who looks at that belief system, no matter what it's based on, even if it's based on science, hard facts, whatever, there'll always be someone who looks at that as just your mental delusion. So in essence, all belief systems, no matter what they're based on, are both insanity and also real, legitimate, which is a really interesting kind of dichotomy that I feel the episode is constantly exploring, but never coming down on either side. Is it just pure insanity, or is it totally legit? No, it's this line you're constantly straddling whenever you have a belief system. So Scully tells Mulder about a nun that taught her at school who was quite spooky, called a Sister Spooky, who told them the story of the Lazarus Bowl. Which it's bizarre that she just happens to, I've plucked this story from the obscurity of my memory, just as we're about to find this Lazarus Bowl, and And
it's just another made-up kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the story of Lazarus obviously is true. The whole Lazarus Bowl thing is made up. And then we go to Chuck, who we've had on the episode before. And he's examining the bowl. And he says that all things vibrate at their own frequency, their own speed. It's like, if you look at anything on the planet, it is literally vibrating. You can't see it because it's so microscopic, but it does. Things vibrate. And based on how they vibrate, you can measure them through sound and basically record that sound. So, the bowl is heavenly, according to Chuck. He listens to it, and it really surprises him. It seems to be making a very deliberate kind of sound, which he feels he needs to examine further. But so Mulder asks O'Fallon about the Gospel of Mary pages and tells him they're fakes, which surprises O'Fallon. O'Fallon bought them from Hoffman to keep anyone else from ever reading them. But now he feels like a fool for having been duped. And I really like this scene. Just because I remember first hearing about the Gospel of Mary and the Gospel of Thomas on a documentary. I'd never heard about them before. They just weren't even a thing to me. And obviously I was quite a young Christian at the time, and I'm watching this documentary, and it goes into all this stuff about the Gospel of Mary and the Gospel of Thomas and how they were left out of the Bible, and it actually shook me as a person of faith. It shook me. I'm like, what? You mean this isn't made up? These things exist. There is a Gospel of Thomas and a Gospel of Mary out there. And somebody decided they can't be included in the Bible, and yet they say things in them that is contradictory to what's in it. Like, that really rocked my brain until I dug into it and realised what absolute load of crap they were and why they weren't included in the Bible. Like, the legitimacy of them when you look into how they came to being. There's very obvious reasons why they haven't been included in the Bible and why they're not considered legitimate. So, but at the time, I didn't know that when I was first watching that documentary. It did actually quite shake me. So I like this scene because I identify with the priest on a particular level. But on the other hand, I also think, hang on, this is a priest in the Catholic Church. He should be pretty well clued up. He should be, I just feel like he should know better.
Well, I guess.
But even so, the actor who plays him, again, another actor who I've seen in a lot of different things, really good kind of character actor, and I like him here. I think he brings a lot of weight and charisma to this priest character. Like, even with just the earlier scenes. I'm
sure, like, he plays a priest in everything he's in. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he just turns up, you're just like, I'm sure I've seen this character before. I've seen him in this performance or this role.
Right.
I don't know why.
Okay.
That or a gangster.
Possibly, yeah. But even like in the scenes before, when he first took Mulder and Dwayne down to the to God's refrigerator, as he calls it, like he's very dry. Like he threw out a joke at the two of them,
yes,
but in a really dry way, and I liked the delivery on there. It shows that this guy's got something about him that's like he's not just.
No, as he says, it's like, have you got the Shroud of Turin down here? And he's like, no, but we've got Judas's bathrobe.
Yeah, something like that.
And the guy's
Peter's
like,
bathrobe, yeah.
He's like, you're joking. He's like, I am. Yeah, it's all fake.
Yeah. It's just in the delivery, the way he delivers it. It's just so dry, but I like it. But I feel for this guy because when you've built your whole life around a particular belief system, and then something comes along that rocks it enough to shake the very foundations of it, then what do you do? Because if that's the one thing that has given your whole life meaning, and it also gives millions of other people's lives meaning. Mulder calls Scully to autopsy the body of Hoffman. He thinks O'Fallon may have killed him in retaliation, and he gets a call from Dwayne about casting choices.
This is a good conversation.
Yeah, it's great. I love it when I love how it almost calls back to Ex-Cops. Remember when like Mulder's the one who, when the cameras show up, he's all like putting on his camera face and presenting to the camera, like he sees it as an opportunity to get the X-Files heard, get them out there, and now he's got his opportunity to be made as a character in a film about the X-Files, and you can see he's proper into it. He's like,
oh yeah,
so I want to see myself on screen being played by Richard Gere.
Yes, that's the weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, he asks him, then he says, who do you see playing you in a film? He's like, oh, Richard Gere. And he's like, how about Gary Shandling? And his face just dropped. And I love the fact that Gary Shandling has such little thoughts about himself that he doesn't mind taking that role in this episode as the D-list celebrity that's going to be playing him, that Mulder should be offended by when he finds out that piece of information. So, yeah. Scully weighs Hoffman's heart, which is unusually large. Then Hoffman wakes up, spits out a few lines. He says, I am who I am, which is verging on blasphemous, shall we say, because he is essentially. So I am is what God calls himself in the Bible. It's one of the names that God gives himself. Okay. He tells, when Moses asks God, what shall I tell Pharaoh when I say that you've sent me? God says, tell them I am has sent you. It's like, where the expression, I can't remember which philosopher it was. Was it Nietzsche or someone like that? It was one of the ones who kind of essentially said that I think, therefore I am, which is basically them saying, look, I think, therefore I am God. I'm God of my own existence, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it's a very deliberate line in saying I am who I am. It's essentially this guy saying I am God, basically. This is the stuff in the episode that starts to kind of make me go, I'm not sure about this. Where you going, Duchovny? Yeah. Where you going? It's getting a bit too on the nose in some areas. But Scully cuts herself, and then Hoffman is back on the table. So the cut distracts her, and then she looks up, and then Hoffman's back on the table. Now, you can't see it, during this particular scene, because he's full of like zombie type makeup, because he's a corpse at this point that's been in a bomb. But this guy playing Hoffman, I don't know if this was deliberate because we've already had references, but he proper looks like Richard Gere to me. Like, when he first rocks up in the church, in a bit the door's open and then he comes walking up, I'm like, did they get Richard Gere to play this part? And then reference Richard Gere in the episode? It just, because given how meta the episode is, it just seemed like that would be something they would do. Let's get Richard Gere to play this part, but then we'll reference Richard Gere. But no, it's not Richard Gere. And I don't know if you felt the same thing. I'm guessing probably not. But
no.
Right. When I looked at this guy, I thought, that dude proper looks like Richard Gere. Just his mannerisms. He's got the same squinty-eyed thing that going on that Richard Gere has. But okay, moving on. If anybody else listening or watching, if you're in the same camp as me, if you saw this guy and you thought, why does he look like Richard Gere? Let us know in the comments. Actually, it could just be me. Could just be me. Who knows?
I think it's just Brian.
The power of suggestion. We've been told about Richard Gere, and then I'm looking for Richard Gere. So, yeah. Scully tells Mulder there was poison in Hoffman's stomach, and Mulder assumes it was O'Fallon. So, they go to arrest O'Fallon mid-service, and this is there's an odd bit of behaviour here from Scully, because she's the one who kind of holds Mulder back and says, let's allow him some dignity. So she doesn't want to arrest him in front of everyone because he's doing a service. And then she takes a bit of time just to, while they're waiting in the wings, she takes a moment to kneel before a statue of Christ, which turns into Hoffman on the cross and shocks her. And when it turns back to normal, at that point, Scully does a complete about turn and just says, let's get this over with. And literally leads Mulder to the front, in front of everyone, to arrest O'Fallon. Which is...
Yeah.
It's just odd behaviour from Scully there, isn't it?
It is, but then this is an episode where everything is odd and skewed and different and weird and...
I
it's
don't
not real.
But it just feels like that's clearly a faith. There's something of Scully's faith happening within that moment. You know, she's taken a moment there to kneel before Christ. It turns into Hoffman, and that she doesn't just remain. She isn't just spooked by that and then backs off from the statue and stands by Mulder and waits. She takes that as a sign to go, no, let's just arrest this guy. Let's go and arrest O'Fallon. Dignity be damned. Let's just arrest him. And it's a chain of events that, I don't know, just feels very deliberate. But so they go to arrest him, and it's at that point that Hoffman walks through the door, alive and kicking, perfectly fine. So
and
who was the body, and what were the visions, and I don't know. It's like, at this point, it's like, what is going on right now?
Yeah,
it's
that's
all
exactly where I was.
Yeah,
that's when I started to think, like, none of this makes sense. None of it's supposed to make sense. It's all just weird and out there and unusual and just Hollywood licensed, and everything's just crazy and mixed up because they can.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. So Skinner is pissed at them for autopsying a body that isn't
dead.
Hoffman's. Yeah,
I thought they were giving away for doing it because it wasn't dead.
But there is a body there. There's still a body, right? It's so bizarre. Or is that body gone now? Is the body no longer there?
No idea.
Is the body still there, but it's just not Hoffman? It's not quite explained. All we know is that Skinner's pissed. He's blaming Mulder and Scully, and clearly it's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
Like, from what I can see, they've done everything that they should have done in the investigation. It's seriously losing me. It's his reasons for being pissed that I'm not quite on board with. I'm just like, dude, chillax. They've like this. Whichever way you cut it, they found a body. That body needed autopsying. Surely, it certainly wasn't going to hurt. Yeah. It certainly wasn't going to hurt it. It was damage from the blast anyway.
That would be a surprise if it was. If it did get hurt during the autopsy. Maybe it's a sniper zombie.
Sniper zombie, yeah. So, yeah, it still raises the question, who is the dead man, basically. So, Mulder and Scully get to their office where Chuck is still working on the bowl. He tells them it has the voice of a man speaking Aramaic. He's talking the lyrics to a Beatles song, Cuckoo Cuckoo, as well as instructing a man to get up from the dead, a la Jesus and Lazarus. So it's just, there's always something in there that just, in this episode, that just skews it to the point of like,
farce,
yeah, craziness. Like if it was just the Aramaic voice saying "get up," from Talitha Kumi, all that, jazz, then it would just be this mystery of, is that actually the bowl? Is that actually the bowl that that was there when Christ said the words, and for some bizarre reason his vocal patterns got into the clay, and yet you've got the lyrics to Cuckoo Cuckoo on there, which to me suggests that it is a fake, it is a forgery, and Hoffman making it was putting the line, the Jesus line onto the bowl, but was maybe listening to the Beatles as he was making it, and that's on there as well. Otherwise, there's just no real reason why.
Yeah,
it's just so farcical and so out there that like every scene leaves you got scratching your head. And yet I'm entertained.
Well, there's not a minute to breathe, and everything is so disjointed, and it puts you in the back foot that you can't help but be entertained by the craziness that's going on.
Yeah, and because of how Mulder and Scully react to everything as well, and their relationship in this, and even Skinner, particularly in the third section of this episode, some of the Skinner stuff just cracks me up. But yeah, so Hoffman gives his story to Mulder and Scully, and it's particularly in this sequence where I'm looking at him and I'm like, it just looks like Richard Gere. He believes he has become Jesus Christ. He spent so long immersing himself into the culture and the customs, the time of Jesus, that he converted. And he blew up the crypt because he now knows that his forgeries were blasphemous. Obviously, I'm going to have certain thoughts and feelings on this particular sequence. But I find it interesting that he uses the word converted at one point, and then uses the phrase that I have become Jesus, essentially. Now, the wording of that can be quite inflammatory, given what he's saying there. If you take it at face value, if this guy believes he's literally become Jesus Christ, that he is now Jesus Christ walking the earth, then that's very inflammatory. It's kind of offensive, and the guy wants locking up. However, if you look at it purely from the conversion slant of things, and there is the idea within Christianity is that the more you draw close to Christ, the more you become Christ-like. Not that you become Christ, but you become Christ-like. And one could make the assumption that in a roundabout way or an overly blunt way, that's what he's getting at. I'll leave that to whoever's watching to decide for themselves. But if it makes the episode more palatable for you, then have at it. But Mulder watches Plan 9 from outer space, and the most surprising thing about this is that Scully actually knows what the movie is. Scully rocks up. She comes in while Mulder's just speaking the dialogue along with the film, and she looks at the screen. She goes, "Plan 9 from outer space," and he's like, "Yep." I'm quite surprised she knows what movie it is. I'll be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I don't really see Scully as a Plan 9 from outer space kind of girl. So
no, maybe it's the old professor boyfriend or something.
Maybe she's seen Ed Wood, so
yes,
yeah, because I do see her more as an Ed Wood kind of girl. So neither of them can sleep. She asks him if he thinks it's possible that Hoffman really is Jesus, to which Mulder gives the only sensible answer, which is no, Scully. So Scully begins to question the idea of faith, saying that maybe faith requires a certain level of crazy. And there's an implication there that, both of them on some level are crazy, whether it's Mulder's faith in the existence of weird supernatural things and aliens, or her, faith in God. So Mulder has watched Plan 9 from outer space 42 times. It comes up in conversation, which Scully finds quite sad. But I felt there was something very deliberate in bringing that up, which is because Mulder talks about Plan 9 from outer space as being almost this kind of therapeutic way of tricking his brain into going to a much simpler place, like a child, so that it opens up his worldview to see things in a way that perhaps he couldn't see when he was bogged down with his, adult thought processes, essentially. And
it's also like I took it as so Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. 42 is the meaning of life.
Right.
According to that book and series, and he's watched it 42 times.
Yeah,
I kind of took that the meaning of life. Just chillaxing, watching movies.
Right, because I took that as Duchovny essentially drawing a parallel to a religious practice in a way. Like watching this film for Mulder is almost like a religious practice. If he needs to get into a particular mental state, as he points out, he watches Plan 9 from outer space. So much so that he's watched it 42 times. So it's like a religious experience for him. It's like a form of meditation in a way. And I just think it's clever, because I think it is drawing parallels to the everyday, to the things that people don't necessarily see as a religion or a faith or a religious practice, and it's calling them out as that, which I personally think there is truth in, because I think whether you want to accept it or not, you worship something. You might not worship God, you might not believe in God, but you worship something. What is worship? Worship is the devotion of yourself, the devotion of your time, your energy, whatever, your resources to a particular thing. So if you worship God, you take time out to praise him in song or write poetry or whatever it is you want to do. That's called an act of worship. If you're really into movies, you spend an inordinate amount of time watching those movies, devoting your time to it, like maybe an abnormal amount of time compared to the average person. It's like we all do it. You know, whether we believe in something or not, we worship. It's just a human thing, and I think that's what this scene is about. Essentially, I think that's what Duchovny getting at, is this notion that Mulder's seen this film 42 times. He does it to get in a particular mindset. It's like an act of worship. It's like a religious practice. So Mulder suggests they accept Dwayne's invitation to LA for the filming of the movie about their case.
Yeah.
So they get to the set. It's a really funny one. It happened and I just laughed. It's a really like blink and you miss it kind of moment. But Dwayne kisses Mulder on the cheek and then shakes Scully's hand.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Did you not catch that? Oh man, I found it hilarious because it should be the other way around. But if you go off convention, but we're in Hollywood here now, so things always get skewed in Hollywood. So Dwayne goes in, he kisses Mulder on the cheek, and then he shakes Scully's hand, which is, like I say, it's done so matter-of-factly that you kind of miss it, I think. It might actually be the first time I noticed it, but... they meet Shandling and Leone, and this might be something else you missed, I don't know, but for some reason I don't recall seeing it before, but... Shandling is talking to Mulder, and he's asking him which way do you dress? As in,
yes,
which way do you swing? Which way are you hanging? It's because that's he needs to know that piece of information because that helps him get into character. It's like one of them stupid method acting pieces of nonsense.
Yeah.
And while this is happening, like I say, I think this is the first time I ever saw it. Tia Leone has got Scully doing laps in the background. I don't know if you noticed it. Did you not notice it? Oh, mate, seriously, I've never noticed this before, so it doesn't surprise me that you didn't notice. This is the first time I noticed it. So while Shandling is talking to Mulder, in the background, Scully is just running fast as she can this way, and then back that way, and then back this way. And the whole time, Tia Leone's just kind of looking at her and then not looking at her and just looking bored. And it's almost like she's got her to do it because it's like, I need to know how Scully runs. Just run as fast as you can because I need to know how Scully runs. And I just found it hilarious because you got little Gillian Anderson in the background giving it all. Just like little legs just going like 10 to a dozen. And she's just doing it the whole time that Mulder and Shandling are talking to each other. I found it hilarious, and it was really surprising because I'd never seen it before. It's like,
yeah,
but that's the thing with this episode is like there's things in it that I'm catching for the first time, even now.
Well, yeah, I will have a look for that next time I watch this one because that just sounds funny.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. So. And then we get a little sequence that, again, is a bit of a commentary on Hollywood and the prima donna kind of nature of making films and egos on set and stuff, which is when an extra dressed as a zombie bites the actor. Bites an actress. I don't know if it's Tia Leone, but he's like, what's her neck made out of? And he's like, he proper kicks off. He's like, it's turkey, like you said. And he's like, I said tofurkey. It's like, because he's a vegetarian. And it's like, but yeah, it's just, as with so many scenes in this episode, it doesn't really need to be there, but it's funny. It's funny as anything. Seeing the reaction on Mulder and Scully's face, the commentary that it makes on the kind of people that are in Hollywood who, when you see them in award shows, act as if they're curing cancer. And when you see them on set, that they're not. They're mucking about like kids, and they're having prima donna outbursts over tofurkey misplacement. So yeah, great. We get a 3-way bubble bath conversation about misunderstood zombies with Mulder, Scully and Skinner, which is rather amusing. Mulder and Scully are really settling into the LA lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
they're joined by Skinner on the phone call. Skinner is really enjoying the LA lifestyle. I love how when Mulder asks him what you're doing right now, he's just very blunt about it. I'm having a bubble bath.
Yeah, then he's the only one that's honest about it.
Yeah. It's like Skinner's such a man. He's so in tune with like who he is as a man that he's got no qualms about just, yep, I'm having a bubble bath. I've even put scented candles around. Oh man, Skinner, never change. But I love the little conversation about zombies and how they're misunderstood. And if people would just stay with them a bit longer in the films, they'd get to the love-making side of things, and they're not all bad and all that. But yeah, great. But we go back to watching the movie, so right at the beginning. So this is now premiere night. The movie's been made, and they're watching it. And we're getting, again, who's got the bigger flashlight gags. And particularly that Skinner has a bigger flashlight than Mulder. And it's at that Mulder can't take it anymore, and he gets up and he walks out, and Skinner just looks like he's enjoying every minute of it, quite frankly.
Oh, he's having the best time ever.
Mulder sits on set. Scully comes to tell him that Hoffman has been murdered by O'Fallon, who then took his own life. Mulder gets angry and sad about how these complex men will ultimately be remembered as, these buffoons that we see on the film that has been made about them. And I get that. I'm kind of with Mulder here, because you look at O'Fallon, there's so much tied up in who he was as a man. Is all about his faith, and because Hoffman was kind of instrumental in pulling the rug out from under him and really shaking his world and all that. It's what we believe in, the things that we carry with us that shape us as people.
Yeah,
it makes us complex individuals that are reduced down to jokes about who's got the biggest flashlight once it gets translated to a Hollywood movie, and you see the farcical nature of Hollywood and film and TV shows and their interpretation of the real world and things. So, Scully says that the dead don't care, essentially. She also says that Skinner felt so bad for him that he gave them an FBI credit card. So they walk off the set, feeling quite pleased with themselves because they're going to go on a spending spree. And once they're out of sight, the dead kind of, ghosts arise from the set and start dancing in this wacky little dance, which I did have an interpretation for when I watched it last night, but now it's kind of escaped me. I think there was something in there about something to do with the religious experience and what we see versus what we don't see. How, just the essentially the truth is out there, and that we can't just chalk it up to some 45-minute segment that we can put in a TV show or whatever. I had a much better reasoning than that in my head last night when I watched it that I thought was quite profound, but now it's completely been lost. So I will throw it over to you. Care to wrap up?
I take this as a kind of throwaway episode. It's just fun. It's not serious. It's not within the X-Files canon. I mean, this movie will probably never be mentioned ever again. You can correct me if I'm wrong here. I do think that Duchovny does show some good choices here with his writing and directing, because it does parody the X-Files, the FBI, Hollywood, even his co-stars. It kind of takes fun, and himself. It takes kind of pot shots at them all. It does delve a little bit into spiritual reflection, I guess, a little bit. It ponders on certain things, but it's not as prevalent as it is in some other episodes. I have a lot of fun with this one. I think it's just entertaining. I'm happy to switch off. I think there is a whole meta side to this where it's really poking fun at bad shows and bad movies that don't have the connectivity to make the plots work, where things just, like I said, happen just for the sake of it. And I think it just adds to the fun. I like it. I think I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'll join you on that. I think I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I think Duchovny is maybe a smarter man than people kind of maybe give him credit for. I think there are probably things in this episode that are completely going over my head. Like I know Duchovny has I think Jewish background. I think he comes from Jewish background.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if if he holds to that belief or whatnot, but certainly he has. There's a lot of stuff in, shall we say, Coen Brothers movies that go over my head. Like their most Jewish, shall we say, movie is probably Barton Fink, or maybe A Serious Man. I think so Coen Brothers also are Jewish, and there is a lot of Jewish references and things about that come from that Jewish background that are littered throughout their films. But when they get really heavy on it, like the references, a la Barton Fink, it completely goes over my head. Now, I understand a lot of Judaism in the context of, how the Old Testament fits in with the New Testament and that, but I'm not a Jew, so there's a lot of stuff there that just goes over my head. And I do wonder if there's a lot of stuff in here in that kind of vein I'm just not quite getting because of the way they're framed, I guess. I don't know. But so I think it's either a case of Duchovny being too smart for the audience, or it may be just not being clever enough to hold together in a way that's 5-star satisfying. But it certainly holds together enough in a 4-star satisfying way, just because of how entertaining it is to see Mulder and Scully behave the way they do, get in the situations they do, and have the interaction that they do, where you can clearly see that they love each other, they're in each other's corner. Seeing them hang out at Mulder's apartment is and at the studio, do their thing. It's great. It endears me to them. It's what I like. I like seeing that relationship in that vein when we get to see it. So I'm good. 4 out of 5 from me.
Okay, Brian. So tell us a little bit about the next episode. Now, this is notorious. We've mentioned this several times since the very first episode.
It's the big one.
Fight Club. Does it live up to the movie?
Well, Fight Club, one of my favourite movies of all time. I got really excited when one of my favourite shows of all time was titled Fight Club, because I thought, they're going to do something in the Fight Club vein. This is going to be extra special. So we'll see you next week. We'll find out whether it's extra special or not.
Yeah, I think we know the answer to this one. I am looking forward to see how bad it is. Now, I will say one thing. Going into certain episodes and expecting the worst thing ever can have a strange effect on it. Do you think that's going to happen here? Tesos dos bichos, or whatever it is. No.
No.
Okay.
I still feel, and I could be wrong. Could be wrong. I could go into it and my mind could change. But if you to ask me right now, what would be my bottom 10 episodes of all time, I think this is an absolute shoe-in for being amongst that bottom 10, without doubt.
Yeah, but let's not forget, Tessos Does Butchers was the worst episode in the entire history of the X-Files ever. Double underlined exclamation point.
Not according to me, though.
Okay, right.
For that one, you'd have to check out El Mundo Gira.
El Mundo Gira, that's the one I'm thinking of. So, there we have it.
According to fans, Tessos Dos Bichos is actually the worst episode of all time. So that's crazy.
That is crazy. So that's a wrap on Hollywood AD. A gloriously strange ride through faith, forgery, and filmmaking, where the only thing more exaggerated than the plot is Mulder's hair in the movie version. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Duchovny's love letter to satire, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps more X-Files find the show. So join us next time when we return with Fight Club, where things get chaotic, violent, and just a little doppelgangery. Until then, remember, the truth may be out there, but we'll still be here. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.